Howdy, and welcome to You've Got People Problems, the podcast where we dig into the leadership challenges that no one wants to talk about, but every business faces. I'm your host, Melissa Ortiz with Activate Human Capital Group, and this is episode 12. Today, we're talking about something every entrepreneur needs, but may not yet have in their lives, a peer group. The kind of space where you can share the hard stuff instead of pretending everything's fine, where you can celebrate the big wins without bragging. To help us unpack the power of peer groups, I'm joined by Phil Kristianson, a longtime EO member, peer group facilitator, and leadership advisor who's helped entrepreneurs grow through honest connection and shared experience. In this episode, we will explore how peer groups help leaders grow faster and avoid burnout, the difference between advice giving and experience sharing, and why the difference matters, why vulnerability is your leadership superpower, especially within the safe confines of a peer group, and how to lean in a way that actually helps you get unstuck. So whether you're feeling the entrepreneurial isolation we all experience or looking to grow with intention, this conversation is packed with wisdom you won't want to miss. Let's get to it. Howdy, y'all. My name is Melissa Ortiz, and this is You've Got People Problems, episode number 12. Today, I'm chatting with Phil Kristianson about the importance of peer groups for entrepreneurs. And I'm really excited about this conversation, Phil. I've known you 10 years now and met through EO, which has been a great part of my life. And I think you have probably a better visibility into this importance of this topic than just about anyone I know. So looking forward to the conversation. I'm going to stop my screen share so it'll just be us girls. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got introduced. What was your first peer group experience? And then tell us a little bit about your EOS practice as well, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. I was introduced to EO. I joined 25 years ago. The Hawaii chapter. I had a business there. Wasn't familiar with the term entrepreneur really. I was just, trying to run a business, grow a business, and figure it out. And some friends of mine started the EO Hawaii chapter. It was YEO back there, Young Entrepreneur Organization. And they encouraged me to join them. My immediate reaction was, I don't have enough time. But fortunately, my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, she had a past boyfriend that was a YPO member. And she said, pay attention to this. This is important. And I'm still thankful to this day that she gave me that little nudge because it's been just an amazing journey. And because the chapter was it was just forming, I ended up getting involved with helping to lead the chapter early on, which was also a really important piece of the puzzle. Yeah. Oh, I don't have any audio from you.
Well, that's odd. Okay, how about
There we
now?
go.
When I first started in EO, it was because my admin at the time heard a radio ad that said they were trying to start this entrepreneurs group in College Station, Texas. She's like, you need to do this. So I got the nudge and I was like, okay, that sounds fun. I'll see what it's about. And ended up being one of the founding members. And it was such an interesting experience that I'd had nothing like. And I'm one that I joke that I like to swim in the deep end. So for me, EO, and for those of you who don't know EO, it's the Entrepreneurs Organization. It's a global organization of volunteer-led focus on entrepreneurs. And I love to swim in the deep end. And so the top and bottom 5% of life that we don't get to talk about with other people often, I was hooked and I was like, okay, this sounds good. I'll have that.
Yeah, and entrepreneurs do not naturally travel in packs, tend to be solitary, head down, focused on where they're going. And so EO has done an incredibly good job at creating a tribe for people who aren't normally part of a tribe. And one of the reactions, I'm also a forum trainer, and forum is an important component of EO. When I'm training brand new members how to do this forum skill, one of the very consistent, because I always ask them, why did you join? What was the thing that motivated you to make this decision? And often they feel very lonely, and hanging out with some entrepreneurs prior to joining, EO members, they realized, oh my gosh, these people get me.
Yeah. They're
And
living the same life. They have the same problems in a way that so often nobody else in their circle does.
no, no. And so you just learn not to talk about it because people look at you a little strangely.
Yeah.
I sort of developed a theory around entrepreneurship because I've hung out with EO members for, 25 years. And I also do there's an exercise in the form training day called Lifeline where people plot out from birth to their current age, their highs and lows. And the time is quite compressed, so we end up just hearing about the significant events in their life. And I've seen probably 4,000 entrepreneurial lifelines now. And at one point, I realized that, and this is what informed my theory. I don't know if it's right, but I kind of wish I kept images of all this data because it would be fascinating to let AI chew on it. But my theory is that a certain percentage of the population is born with a latent gene, the entrepreneurial
Okay.
gene, and it's activated by either adversity or opportunity. And once that gene is ignited, you can't really turn it back off. You have to manage it like any other condition. And if you look at people's lifeline, you can see it's either at the very bottom, right? I lost my job or something really bad happened. I'm on the ground and there's no further to fall. And so you're like, I'm going to do my own thing. Or a big opportunity is presented and you run with it and you can't turn it back off. So going to work for someone else or, it's just really challenging. And so EO is just a incredible support system to manage that genetic because it is an odd bit of wiring, right?
It is.
Most people are, if they're irritated by something, they just complain about it and move on. Entrepreneurs like, that's stupid. That's got to be fixed. And they build a business around it. And yeah, and it's a bit of a crazy journey, right?
So I have a life goal that I have not yet accomplished, but I want to do Lifeline with my family. I want to hear my parents' highs and lows, and they're pretty private people. They're pretty stoic.
Yeah.
So to really hear that, I think would just be fascinating because you piece together bits of your parents' lives, but I think to do it as a family, especially people, we're in family business together. My brother and I are fifth generation on the farm, and to
Yeah.
hear that as part of our legacy, as part of our story, someday I'll get there. I don't know. My dad's pretty resistant to anything touchy-feely, but
What I've found is a couple of observations around this lifeline exercise. One is for your listeners who are familiar with this model called the Johari window. Um, they can Google it, but there's 4 quadrants in it. It's one of the many quadrant models out there. There's, thousands of them. The top left light in the Johari window is the open window, right? Which is what I know about you, you know about me, right? You know I have a turtleneck on. I know I have a turtleneck on. It's in my open window. Below that, the lower left quadrant is the hidden window, which is what I know about me, but you don't know about me, often because I choose not to share it. And every time we communicate with another human being, part of our brain is filtering what we are willing to expose, right? And top right is the blind window, which is what you know about me, but I don't know about me. And even though we're with ourselves 24/7, 365, we often don't see ourselves that clearly. And the lower right is the unknown window. That's sort of where the magic is. So the way that this model works is if I share something from my hidden, my open window grows because now you know about it and I know about it. If you reflect into my blind, now I know about it and you already know about it. My open window expands in that direction. As it expands to the right and down, it taps into that lower right quadrant as that upper left square expands and taps into the unknown, which is where all of our potential lives. And one of the really cool things about that Johari window model, which probably everyone has experienced if they think back on it, is if I share something from my hidden that has vulnerability, the natural human response is to reciprocate. Someone takes a risk with you, shares something of vulnerability, we tend to want to reciprocate. And so to make for a really great lifeline experience, go first and take a stretch, share some things that are vulnerable, and people will follow
yeah.
and share more from their hidden. And I find that once someone shared their lifeline, I tend to give them a lot of grace because I understand the significant things that have impacted who they are, also relate to, oh yeah, me too, right? And
Yes.
it's a magical experience. It really is.
I think that's probably one of the reasons, Phil, I've been so attracted to all these assessments over time. I mean, I worked for Gallup. I love the Gallup Strengths Finder. As you were talking about that depth and sharing the vulnerability, I was thinking about the Gallup Relator Strength because
Yeah.
they love to go deep. That's one of my top 5 strengths. But in general, it helps us forgive each other for the way that we're different and start to acknowledge those. And it's always a deepening. It's like, oh, I get it. That's why you do that. And it's, as we tie it back to these peer groups, I had a client the other day who I said to her, you are in an industry, there are very few entrepreneurs. It's a social services service. And I
Yep.
said, you need some peers. You are really struggling with your employees. The government's kind of messing with you. Can you be a for-profit? Do you have to be a nonprofit? And I said, quite frankly, I don't care if you go EO or Vistage, or there's some other models out there. Kind of shared the pros and cons with her. And I said, you need to pick one. And she shared with me this week. She's like, I joined Yo. I'm so excited. And she joined the Sacramento chapter. I'm just like, this is so great because she's going to get this experience that she hasn't had. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about your EOS business. I see your EOS logo behind you. And, you know, do all of your clients in some kind of peer group? Are you at the 40% mark? Where are you at in convincing your own people? Because this has been such a huge part of your life.
Yeah, a lot of my EOS clients are already EO members just because I'm, steeped in everything EO and, very involved with it. The EOS clients I have that aren't, I am definitely putting a bug in the air. One of the values of having a peer group is that what we often do is we need someone to talk to, and so we end up talking to the people closest to us, which are sometimes our spouses, our family, or our employees. And there's a bunch of things we're trying to figure out, and we're highly entangled with our employees, with our business partners, with our family, and being able to talk through some of this stuff without creating a reaction. One of the magical bits about the design of EO and these peer groups is, especially in forum, we assemble these groups with people that you are not entangled with. So having a group with people that you are not competing with, doing business with, best friends coming into it, allows us to share things without fear of creating reaction. We're highly engaged, but not attached.
Yeah.
And it just takes a lot of pressure off of our families and off of our employees to work out the stuff that comes with being a visionary entrepreneur, which is often, 100 ideas a day and seeing all the problems in a company rather than seeing all the great stuff happening and just having people that get that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. So tell me a little bit about your EOS practice. Do you have a geography or an industry that you favor? I know what I see is that we all have the same problems, hence the podcast. You've got people problems because we all do. And it doesn't matter if you're a 10-person veterinary clinic in Nebraska or a Fortune 500 high-end retail, they all have the same problems. So
Yeah, it's
what's been your
shocking how
recipe?
similar the issues are. And, from a geography, I try and stay within a sort of 2-hour drive. I'm a member of EO San Francisco, so I'm down there a lot. So I've quite a few clients in the Bay Area, and I live in Sacramento, so I have clients up here. Occasionally, I'll take a travel client if it, really makes sense to me, but I'm trying to simplify my life. Um, yeah, I would agree. The people issues are probably some of the most challenging stuff. I think once you get alignment and clarity around where you're going and what the plan is for getting there, then that actually minimizes people issues because so, something I always warn both forums when they're working on their vision and with my EOS clients is what does happen as you get clarity around vision is you do sometimes lose people. And it's sort of the shadow side of visioning work, also core values work. I found some employees will hang out a shocking amount of time in the hope that this business is going someplace that they want to go. And then as we get crystal clarity on where we're going, some people are like, I absolutely don't want to go there. But that's actually ultimately a really good thing. Same with core values. As we get clear on what we stand for culturally, all of a sudden the people that do not fit, it becomes crystal clear. And we either have to support them in finding another culture that's a better fit or, you know, free up their future to a much better life.
We joke a lot about freeing up people's future, but God, it is amazing how often I see people in the wrong role, desperately trying who they know to be, who they know the organization needs them to be. They know they're failing, and it's a huge morale hit to the individual. And oh, by the way, we're not getting great performance. Our financials are hurting because of it. We're just doing each other a mutual disservice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Having owned and run and businesses for like 30 years now, one of the things that, one of the nice things about being in business for that long is you get to see the long lessons. And I've had a number of employees that I had to free up their future. At the time, it was not pleasant for them or me, but did it in as kind a way as possible, but come back to me and thank me because they were stuck. It wasn't a good fit, and they ended up going on to do amazing things. Interestingly, some things that ended up benefiting our company because they went to work for someone who was a great strategic alliance, and they ultimately appreciated the gift that was given to them by just because people don't want to quit, right? They don't want to give up, but sometimes it is not a good fit, either culturally or, just in what their opportunities are growing in the business. And I think it's important to be real around that and support people in moving on to something that is better. And ultimately, it does tend to be better. Yeah. You mentioned when we were talking about Lifeline and about the analytics around human beings, and just wanted to sort of touch on that because there's lots of different tools out there, but I think when you're assessing people, I think sometimes some of the value is missed in that. And I think, and you touched on it, when we're doing personality profiles or assessments, often we're looking at the differences. And I think there's certainly value in that, but the opportunity to also see and appreciate that other people are different than us, but coming together, we're more. And I think sometimes we pigeonhole people into, oh, you're a this, or you're, back when DISC was the big thing, oh, you're such a D, right? And
yes.
I'm onboarding a practice manager assistant for my company, and we both took the same assessment. And I said, I know, and it turned out we are very different, which is awesome, right? We were like a Tetris fit with how we're wired and how we go about doing things. But I made sure that I primed the pump before she, read through her and my assessment that let's give each other grace around our differences because that's where the magic comes from. And she's brought it up a couple times. I'm really glad that you teed it up that way because it can also create conflict, right? And I think it's been a real blessing because there is conflict that comes up as we operate differently. And I think if we don't give each other grace around our natural wiring, it can be problematic. And, you're an expert in this stuff. I wouldn't mind, I'd love to tap into you a little bit around sort of what you've seen work and where some people feel short when they, do it yourself around assessments, right? And start clubbing each other over the head with labels.
Yeah, if you're dismissing each other based on the assessments you took, you're doing it wrong. It's probably the general rule of thumb.
That's probably a pretty good rule.
And it's amazing the difference, I think we all know, between reading a report about ourselves or someone else and having a guided discussion. Yeah. I think about my project manager. When you were talking about your practice manager, my project manager is my 180. She's very serious. She's very diligent. She's detailed to the gnat's ass in a way that A, irritates me, and B, I appreciate so much. And so I have this rule of thumb that every meeting I close out with her, I say, okay,
What did I miss? Because I know I will never cover the level of detail she needs. And we just acknowledge that that's not who I am. And so we just make this little placeholder for it. And she knows it's coming. And so throughout the meeting, she'll write down the things she needs. She's like, hey, I need an answer on this. I need to know what we're going to do about this. And I need to know who's going to handle this. And sometimes I have all the answers. Most of the time I don't. I have to follow up with her with one or two things. But we have this like cadence that works. I do it at home too. I'll tell my husband's really strategic and I'm fast. I like to do things fast, even if I'm building the plane while I'm flying it.
Yep.
But he has better ideas than I do. So I'll tell him, hey, I'm going to do this thing and I want your input, but I only have patience to wait until Tuesday. So if you have time to think about it, I'd love your input. But God forbid, don't come back to me when I'm 3/4 of the way down this path and tell me why I should have done differently, because I might pop you in the nose. Yeah. Yes, that's a better idea. And it's too late now. And so it's like we can joke about these things. It's so much easier if we can play with them. Like I know my brother, who I work in family business with, only communicates through humor. I'm way more serious than he is. And I want to like pick the scab, deal with the problem. And he doesn't have it in him. And so I'll start sending him these jokes about the things that are really frustrating in life, because I know that's the only way he can hear it.
Yeah.
It's like this, one of our core values, Phil, is meet them where they are. And I try so hard to like use these assessments, whether it's StrengthsFinder or Predictive Index, to like, okay, what makes this person tick and how can I connect? Because all I care about is a connection. We don't have to do it my way.
Yeah.
I want to get there. And so I think that's probably why I've been obsessed with these things since I was, I don't know, trying to decide where I was going to go to college. I should have been a psych major, but I thought psych majors had to listen to people's problems all day. I'm not great at that. I ended up doing this work anyway with a master's in business, and comes full circle, I guess.
My wife, who's Latina, and I don't know if this is the genesis of it, but I'm like you, let's get it solved now. And I just realized as I've got, early on gotten to know her, I need to let her have 24 hours on something. And then we can have a no problem conversation. And it took me a few revolutions to figure that out, and it is not my natural way, but it is a much better path to happiness to just, you know what, let's talk about this tomorrow. And then it's a much easier conversation. And so just because my way is my way doesn't mean it is the right way. And I think we have to appreciate other people's styles, because ultimately we have to work with people to scale businesses and get things done. And there's a tool we use a lot in EOS. We took from Strategic Coach, and we call it the EOS time management tool, but it's one of the skills that leaders really need to lean into, is the ability to delegate and elevate to their unique ability. And it's a really simple tool, doesn't require a lot of instruction. You just write down everything you do for a week, even the embarrassing stuff. Like just as you're going through a week, write down all the stuff you do. And at the end of the week, take each of those items and put it into one of 4 quadrants. Top left, stuff you love to do and are great at. That's where time disappears. Oh my gosh, I've been working at this for 3 hours and I've got more energy.
In my flow zone.
Yeah, I'm in the flow state. Top right is things that you like to do and are good at, which isn't bad. Lower left, the things that you like to do or you're good at but don't like to do. And that's where, sadly, a lot of people go in their career to die, is doing stuff they're good at but don't like to do. And lower right, stuff you don't like to do and you suck at. And as I've seen people use this tool, I've seen some head trash show up, which I think is valuable to identify. And that is, there's a belief that the stuff that's in my bottom 2 boxes are in everybody else's bottom 2 boxes. And it is just not true. Right? Depending on your profile and how you're wired, the stuff in my bottom 2 boxes are in my assistant's top 2 boxes. And the fact that we can just identify that, and I don't assume that, oh, it's in everybody's bottom 2 boxes. And it just frees me up to spend more time in things that give me energy rather than taking energy. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs get stuck there, just not.
Life is such an energy game. It's amazing. And that acknowledgement that other people are actually wired different than I am. They actually hear different things in the same meeting with the same people. They have different takeaways. It's still fascinating to me what other people take out of the same conversation that I'm in. And I think it's like the beauty of humanity that we do see the world differently, that we do want to take on different pieces. But that delegate and elevate tool is so helpful at helping us acknowledge, wow, I really dislike doing this and I haven't been able to give it up because I know I'm good at it. I don't really want to pay someone else to do something I'm good at, but guess what? It is draining you every time you touch that topic. And I just had a conversation at EO yesterday with a peer who was talking about head trash around, she said, I really think I need a personal assistant. We were actually joking about how we both need wives. It'd be great just for someone to manage our households and all the birthday presents and all this crap that we don't have time for running our own businesses. And she said, but I have this head trash that I didn't grow up in a world where people had personal assistants, and I don't have a lot of friends who are in a place where they would have one. And she goes, I think I'm having as hard a time getting past that as I am even acknowledging, yes, I need this, and what's the process to do that? And a peer group is such a perfect place to have those conversations. And I said, I started with a seventh grader. I had a seventh grader come in and do my laundry, fold it, put away. She needed money. She was on my swim team, and she was this delightful young lady, and it ended up being this great mentorship opportunity.
Yep.
And it was because I needed to free up my time. And she goes, oh my gosh, I was thinking like I need an adult. And she goes, I could help a kid. That's kind of an interesting idea. And so just those discussions are not going to happen when you're with people who aren't like you, who aren't dealing with the same level of time demands and stress. And where do I place my energy? If I have a 9-to-5 job, I do my job, I come home. It doesn't happen for us as entrepreneurs.
And it's, back to peer groups. When you are around peers as an entrepreneurial leader, you get to talk about your wins too. It's not all about talking about problems. And there's not many places that you can celebrate a win because it feels kind of boastful and awkward. And when you're with a group of entrepreneurial peers, they're as happy for you as you are, and to be able to just celebrate your wins and other people's wins, and also talk about the stuff that's driving you nuts. And one of the important cultural pieces of EO is that we don't give each other advice, which is sort of interesting and counterintuitive. But when you give someone advice, you entangle yourself with them and take the position, I know what's best for you. And so being in an absence of people trying to fix you is a pretty wonderful environment. And another important piece of the secret sauce is there's a very strict non-solicitation policy, which means I can literally pick up the phone and call an EO member anywhere on the planet, say EO, and I get right past the gatekeeper and I can have a meaningful conversation because they understand I'm not trying to sell them something. I am not soliciting them. And again, what an amazing environment to hang out with a bunch of people who are not trying to sell you something, right? And yeah,
I want to go back a step to the we don't give advice, because this has been tremendous in my marriage and in my professional life, because my husband and I have a rule that if you can finish the sentence with you idiot, you probably shouldn't be giving it. And I love the idea that when we think about giving advice, if you give me advice and I don't take it, I'm the idiot because, well, you didn't do what I told you. And if I take it and it doesn't work out like we thought, well, you're a jerk because you gave me bad advice. And so it's a game changer, I think, in terms of peers who are all operating at a high level under lots of stress, usually, for us to, instead of give advice, usually our advice comes from a place where we've experienced a thing. Well, guess what? If you tell about the thing that you experienced and share that story, people can take what their own advice out of it is. And I've benefited tremendously from that aspect of EO alone.
And we often actually learn from sharing those experiences as well, because at the time where the experience happened, I didn't fully figure it out. And if I relate to what you're going through and I share a time when I went through something similar, I could, as long as I'm not trying to game the outcome by sharing my experience, which is tricky, often by sharing the experience, I've had some miles on me and some time and some wisdom. And by sharing that experience from the past, I actually learn from sharing the experience, which is kind of a cool piece of it, right? Most entrepreneurs solve more problems by noon on Monday than other people do all week. Highly developed problem solvers. And when entrepreneurs run short on problems, the first thing they do is they go into hero mode, hop on their remote control hero device, checking in. How's everything going back at the... And the reason for the call is I need a problem to solve because my dopamine's dropping and my sense of worth is dropping. But the person receiving the call, that's not what they're hearing. The subtext for them is, you don't trust me. And most people's sweet spot of performance isn't when you don't trust them. And if the entrepreneur can't find a problem to solve, then the next step is they create one. And that's always pretty easy to do in your own company. You can, create a drama and have a problem to solve.
And then dun da da da.
And then out comes the cape and we go into full hero mode. And I think part of the growth that's come for me out of being in EO for so long is there are still times where advice is a powerful tool. If I'm an expert, you're not, and that's our relationship, then it is a really valuable transaction. But if that's our only tool, then there are times where it is just not an effective tool. And when you give advice, taking the position that I have the only right answer, that isn't a scalable model, especially in a business, right? Where we have to start coaching people so that they can make their own decisions. Even if they make mistakes, the value of learning from those mistakes. I read a book at one point. Sometimes we read business books and we get one little nugget, and to me, that's a win. And I think the book was Fierce Conversations, and there was this metaphor in of it. Any organization, there are leaf decisions, branch decisions, trunk decisions, and root decisions. And when I read that, and the author sort of explained what that meant, I was floored because I realized I was making a ton of leaf decisions every day. And a leaf decision is you come to me with, hey, what do you think I should do, boss? And if it's a leaf decision, my response is, you know what? Make the decision. You do not have to ask my permission. And if it's a branch decision, you know what? Make the decision. I'm not going to bite and tell you what to do. Make the decision. You don't have to ask my permission, but loop me in after the fact as to what you did. This gives me a little bit of data flow, how you're doing. A trunk decision, make the decision, but before you commit us to anything, let me know what you're going to do. And then a root decision, wow, we need to circle the wagons, have some meetings, discuss this. And the reason for that metaphor is that you can pluck a lot of leaves off the tree and not kill it. But you rip up a root and you can permanently kill the tree. And I realized when I read that, oh my gosh, at that time people were lining up outside my door. Hey, what do you think I should do about this? What do you think I should do? And I realized they already actually knew what to do. And my big takeaway out of this little bit of noodling was what was happening there was really a transition of liability. As soon as I bit, and they knew I'd bite, oh, yeah, do it this way, that I now owned it. And so if it went sideways, oh, but you said, and so I just dutifully applied this, and it was an interesting byproduct. One, people stopped lining up outside my door, but I also fell into a bit of a depression because those leaf decisions were my crack cocaine of hero. And it took... interestingly, it led to me moving from Hawaii to California to start my second business because that was the catalyst to letting go, letting people gain autonomy. They went to other people to get answers. And it's funny, that was the genesis point of that little insight to, wow, if I step back from this and give people autonomy and create the structure, I can go do something else. Because I was actually bored at the time too, which happens in the entrepreneurial journey is you get to a point where I want to create something else. And I think that's one of the values of EOS is the recognition that some entrepreneurial leaders are visionaries. And if they're stuck in the integrator seat running the business day to day, you get lots of spikes followed by just chaos. And to free them up to be able to stay in that visionary mindset, which is where they get all their energy, and have someone to help filter some of the madness that comes out.
Help us, yes.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think EO, a lot about EO is helping us to be aware of our wiring and also to be appreciative of the wiring because it comes with blessings and curses, right? And to be around other people that have similar wiring, I think we give ourselves grace and learn how to be more effective entrepreneurial leaders, you
Yeah.
know.
And becoming aware of I think so often, especially the female leaders I see, the head trash they carry is all related to their talents. Like, I'll give for instance, mine. Until I took the Gallup Strengths Finder when I was getting my MBA at Texas A&M, I didn't know that my entire life I've been told that I was bossy and impatient. I had no clue those were anything other than shame that I carried that I had to continually tamp down. And when it was exposed as something like, oh, well, people with activator turn ideas into action. I'm like, no, they're impatient and that's bad. But it wasn't bad. And people with command are very clear. They get to the point. They help galvanize people towards action. It's like, no, that's bossy. I think you missed the point here. And to rewrite that script for me was so powerful. And some of these assessments can be great about helping us redefine the things we thought we had labeled and put to bed. It's like, whoa, whoa, you're missing this whole other area. And what I find more than anything, Phil, is that our strengths are our weaknesses. It's two sides of the same coin. It's not the strengths we don't have that are our weaknesses. It's the ones we have in spades that are overactive, and we need to find a way to get our arms around them. So, like my impatience now, I have 40 projects I'm working on, and I poke on this one and this one and this one. And then by the time I get back around to number one, something has happened, and no one felt all the brunt of my enthusiasm on them.
Yeah, no, exactly. And the self-awareness that comes with understand, and it's peer groups help you to understand yourself, assessments help you to understand yourself. Having really supportive people in your life that aren't peers, but that, having an incredible life partner, right? Having some good friends that aren't peers that you can, it's important to have a support system. And you're right. Often our greatest strengths, if we're not clear on what they are and how they work, that they turn into weapons because we don't have control over them. And I think as we gain clarity around what it is and put ourselves in the right position, those become incredible tools. But if we're stuck in the wrong seat, doing the wrong kind of work that just isn't a fit, then those things, instead of becoming strengths, become hindrances. And yeah, understanding yourself is a great first step on your journey to leadership.
Yeah. Being more awesome, which is what we all want. So I know we're kind of running out of time. I love to wrap these up, Phil, by pulling a couple of the key takeaways that I heard. Hopefully, if you have anything you want to add, great, no pressure. I'll start out, and if you want to add a second one, one of the things that I really identified was this is a space in a good peer group where we can save our spouses, our employees, and our good friends from having to hear about things that either they're dependent on and they're nervous to hear you noodling and fretting about, or they just don't have any context to help you. That's one of the things that I heard and have experienced are really, really valuable.
Yeah, and I don't know where this saying came from, but it's become popularized lately, and I think there's a ton of wisdom in it that an entrepreneur needs three things in their life, right? They need a peer group, right? People who just get them. They need an operating system, and whether it's EOS or they need some methodology for scaling the business that's not dependent on them, which creates enterprise value. And they need a coach. And coaches come in many flavors. There's executive coaches. There's the work that you do to help coach people through their people issues, which are never end, right? And so just looking to get that support in order to continue to expand and become more effective and, ultimately scale a business to a place where it's serving you instead of you serving it, because that's the journey, right? In the beginning, you were serving it, but
Yes.
we're trying to get to a place where we have some autonomy, some freedom, and time to pursue other passions, because if we don't have that, then we feel stuck. And that's what I So it gets me up in the morning is seeing, both leadership teams, but also visionary leaders get in a position where they are able to express themselves beyond their business. And, whether that's starting another business or just doing stuff that feeds them, I think is important.
Yeah. So one of my other notes is the don't give advice, because I think this stretches so far beyond a peer group. This is with our employees. This was with our families. I was coaching a manager the other day, and I said, I just want you to get really obtuse and say to every employee question, almost without exception. So of course, accepting the root issues. I don't know. What do you think? And they know, but I do it with my kids too. I'm like, I don't know. They'll ask me, what time is it? I'll say, I don't know. And well, guess what? They go look at a clock. They don't need to come from me. And it helps them realize they have this autonomy and they kind of like it. And then they grow into it, whether it's employees or we just do so much enabling.
Yeah. Most people don't like you to should all over them.
Mm.
Is sort of how I remember it, right?
Yes.
And when my son would go, "Hey, Dad, have you seen oh, it's probably, yeah, I saw it right where you left it." Right? And they were like, "Oh, yeah, okay, I have to be autonomous. I have to figure it out on my own." And, there is a point, managing employees and raising children are shockingly similar. And I remember the point where advice is really helpful early on in their journey because you're an expert and they're not. There's the point where you go, "Ooh, that's going to hurt." It's not going to kill them, but the lesson from the failure is going to be far more profound. And it's hard to watch, but I think it's a lot as a leader as well, is letting people make mistakes and learn from it and not making them wrong or judging them, but encouraging them. And that's when we can start stepping back and trusting, because they will never forget what they learned.
Yeah. My daughter, when she was 9, told me, she said, "Mom, I think we're the words matter family." I said, "Oh, I like that. Tell me more." She goes, "Well, it's like the difference between you telling me something and saying, well, sometimes it helps if you do this." She's like, "That really helps me when you do that." And I said, "Wow." And I said, "Yeah, we're definitely the words matter family."
Yeah. The subtext is, I trust you to make a good decision, not I trust me to know what's best for you.
I'm awesome. You don't know yet, but this is how you're supposed to do it. Versus sometimes it helps if you do this. And it gives them the freedom to choose. And it really is amazing to me, doing this for so long, how much overlap there is between raising children and managing employees, and both make us better at the other, hopefully.
Yeah.
And
the aligning piece is, if we're good parents or we're good leaders, we want them to grow.
Yeah.
We want them to
Okay,
grow.
so here's my last tip that I think is really valuable when I think about the peer group space. This word head trash, I think, is one that not everybody's aware of, but you say it and people go, "Oh yeah, I got head trash." And a safe place where we can identify and start to address our own head trash and help others deal with theirs, I think, is one of the best gifts on earth. And very few places are able to do that other than a peer group.
Yeah, I figured out early on in my EO journey that for folks that are at the top of the food chain in their business, the entrepreneurial leaders and leaders, we are the most effective at getting in our own way. And so having people to go to that also get that just is a great place to work through all of that head trash. Yeah.
Head trash. Well, Phil, it's been such a pleasure spending time with you, as always. Is email an acceptable way to reach you if someone wants to reach out after this? Great. Your email's up on the screen. LinkedIn, I assume, is also an appropriate place.
That worked great. It's always lovely to see you, Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us on You've Got People Problems.
You bet.
And we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of You've Got People Problems. If you got something out of the conversation, make sure to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with the other leaders in your network, because let's face it, we all have people problems. You can watch full episodes on YouTube or listen on your favorite podcast app. But either way, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.